Darius Whitfield was 44 years old, a sports business attorney who had spent 21 years in rooms where enormous things were decided quietly, by people who understood that the most significant agreements in the world are executed the same way as the smallest ones, with a pen, in a chair, across a table. He kept a good pen. He had owned it for 6 years. He used it for nothing except signatures that mattered. On a Thursday afternoon in March, he walked through the door of the house he had shared with his wife for 9 years, still wearing the suit he had put on at 6 that morning, carrying nothing except his briefcase and the particular stillness of a man who has just done something irreversible and is still holding the weight of it. The house was empty. Not empty the way a house is empty when someone has gone to the grocery store. Empty the way a house is empty when someone has decided to leave. The furniture was there. The walls were there. But the things that make a house feel inhabited, the specific objects, the particular order of things, the coat that should have been on the hook by the door, were gone. She had left a note on the kitchen counter. 7 sentences. The last one said she had found what she was looking for, and she hoped he would eventually too. She had no idea what he had just signed. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The afternoon light cut through the kitchen windows at a low angle, the way March light does when the season hasn't decided yet what it wants to be. Darius set his briefcase on the counter. He picked up the note. He read it once. He set it back down flat, not crumpling it, not folding it, setting it down the way he set down everything, with the deliberate care of a man who understands that how you handle a thing says something about what you think it is. He stood in the kitchen for a while. He looked at the counter where she used to keep her coffee maker. Gone. The shelf by the back window where she had kept 4 small plants she watered on Sundays. The brackets were still there. The plants were not. He noticed these things the way he noticed things in a room, precisely and without announcement. Darius Whitfield had grown up in Charlotte, North Carolina, in a household where professional sports were not entertainment. They were economics. His father had run the concessions operation at a mid-size arena for 22 years and had come home every night understanding something most fans never grasped, that the game on the floor was the smallest part of the business. The real architecture, the contracts, the rights, the revenue structures that made the arena possible existed in language, in agreements, in rooms that had no cameras and no crowds. His father had told him once, every game somebody wins, that the people who own the building win every night. Darius had understood that he wanted to be in the building business. He had gone to Howard University, then to Georgetown Law, then to a sports and entertainment practice in Atlanta, where he had spent 7 years learning the anatomy of franchise agreements, media rights, and ownership structures before going independent. He built a practice that was small by design and significant by reputation. 4 attorneys, a paralegal, a client list that included principals in 2 NBA franchises and an ML's ownership group. He had been the man they called when the structure needed to be right, not visible. Right, he had been married to Vanessa for 9 years. She was 41, a marketing director at a commercial real estate firm, striking and socially fluent in a way that made rooms move toward her. He had liked that about her. He had liked her energy and her ambition and the way she could read a room in 30 seconds flat. He had trusted those gifts. He had thought they were pointed in the same direction as his. He had been wrong about that. The direction she was pointed in had become, over the last 2 years, increasingly legible. A name, Raymond, had appeared in ways that were never quite explained. A reference at dinner, a text notification glimpsed across a table, a car he didn't recognize parked 2 houses down on 2 separate Saturday mornings. He had noticed. He had filed it away. He had extended good faith past the evidence, the way he always did in his personal life, because he had decided, at some level he did not examine closely, that extending good faith was the same as protecting the marriage. It was not the same. He had understood that now. He had understood it specifically at 2:47 that afternoon, standing in a conference room on the 32nd floor of a building in downtown Atlanta, holding a pen he had owned for 6 years, signing his name to the final document in a 5-year process that had just made him a principal owner of an NBA franchise. He had driven home in his usual way. He had not called anyone. He had sat with the fact of what he had just done, the weight of it, the real, irreversible, years in the making weight of it, and he had come through the door, to a house that had already decided to be done. He stood in the kitchen. He looked at the bracket where the plants had been. He thought, so this is the day. He did not sit down on the floor. He did not call her. He did not put his back against the wall and slide down it. He picked up his briefcase. He walked to his study. He put the briefcase on the desk. He sat in the chair. He looked at the wall. Then he called his attorney. The year before all of it, Darius had first understood that the distance between himself and Vanessa had acquired a geometry he had not designed. She had always been someone who needed more than he provided in certain registers, social, visible, immediate. He had understood that about himself too. He was not a man who filled rooms with energy. He filled them with attention. He had thought, in the early years, that those two things could coexist indefinitely. He had thought the texture of what he built, steadily, quietly, in rooms without cameras, would eventually make itself known to her in a way she could feel. He had been giving her the language when she needed the structure. He understood that now. There had been a dinner 14 months before the empty house, where a colleague of Vanessa's had described her husband's business with visible admiration, the company cars, the conference appearances, the industry profile, and Vanessa had been animated in a way she had not been, Darius noticed, when he described his own work. He had watched that. He had filed it away. He had told himself it was nothing. He had been a different kind of busy that year. The franchise acquisition had been in its most sensitive phase, the period where everything was contingent, where the documents existed but could not be discussed, where even Vanessa did not know the specific nature of what he was working toward. He had signed NDAs. He had been precise about what he said and to whom. He had come home later than usual and left earlier. He had been in cities she didn't know he was in. He had not hidden it from her. He had contained it. There was a difference that he had understood and that she had experienced as the same thing. A colleague had told him once, over coffee after a long negotiation, that Darius was the most effective person he had ever worked with, precisely because he never revealed his hand until the hand was complete. He had said it as a compliment. Darius had heard, underneath it, something that was also a warning. He had not changed. He had kept working. That was what she hadn't understood. Or rather, that was what she had understood, and what she had decided she could no longer wait for. Her name was Gloria Tate. She was 67 years old, a retired sports business consultant who had spent 30 years advising ownership groups, franchise administrators, and the attorneys who served them, a woman with close-cropped silver hair, a habit of leaning slightly forward when she was listening to something that interested her, and a filing system on her laptop that her former colleagues had described as the most organized archive they had ever been granted access to. She had worked with Darius on 2 prior transactions over 8 years. She had watched him, in both, from a specific angle The angle of someone who understood that the quality of a person's work in high-stakes negotiations tells you everything about the quality of their character. She had not liked Vanessa. She had said this to no one. She had filed it away the way she filed everything, precisely, without deciding yet what it meant. She called Darius on Friday morning, the day after the empty house. She did not call to console him. She called because she had something to tell him, and because she had been waiting for the right moment, and the right moment was when he needed to know. "I need you to come in," she said. "Not your office. Mine, today if you can." He drove to her office at 11. It was on the 14th floor of a building in Buckhead, with a view south that on clear days showed the downtown skyline as a small cluster of vertical objects against a large sky. She had coffee ready. She had a folder on the desk. She did not open it immediately. "Tell me what happened," she said. He told her. The note. The empty house. The brackets on the window shelf. He told it the way he told everything, in order, precisely, without editorializing. 7 sentences. The last one said she had found what she was looking for. Gloria listened. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Raymond Osai," she said. He looked at her. "He's in commercial real estate," she said. "Vanessa has known him for 16 months. I know this because I know people who know him, and because 2 months ago I saw something at an event that I should have called you about then." She paused. "I didn't, because I wasn't certain. I'm certain now." She opened the folder. The first document was not what he expected. It was a lease agreement. An apartment, a 2-bedroom in Midtown, signed 3 weeks ago. The primary leaseholder was Raymond Osai. The co-signatory was Vanessa Whitfield. 3 weeks ago. Before yesterday. Before the note. She had arranged the landing before she left. He looked at the document. He did not move. He did not change his posture. He read it the way he read every document, completely, from the beginning, checking the dates, the signatures, the clause language. His face was still. "There's more," Gloria said. She placed the second document. A financial review she had run through a contact at a title research firm, standard for the work she had done for 30 years. The marital home. Darius had paid the down payment in full from his own savings before the marriage and held the deed in his name alone. That had never changed. She had attempted, 4 months ago, to add her name to the deed through a modification request. The request had been denied because the instrument required Darius's signature. He had not known the request had been made. He looked at this document for a long moment. She was building an exit, he said, not a question. She was building an exit, Gloria said. The financial accounts, he said. Gloria placed the third document. A summary from his accountant who had flagged an anomaly 2 months ago and had been waiting. At Gloria's request, he and Gloria had spoken without Darius's knowledge, which Darius registered and chose not to address, for the right time to present it. From a joint discretionary account over the course of 14 months, $41,000 had been moved in increments small enough to avoid flagging at the standard threshold. The account was technically joint. The withdrawals were technically legal. Technically, Darius looked at all 3 documents. He spread them on the desk the way he spread documents in a negotiation, all visible, all at once, so the full picture was present, and no single piece could dominate the analysis. He looked at them together. He looked at the dates. He looked at the sequence, the relationship beginning, the lease signed, the deed attempt, the withdrawals running parallel to all of it. He looked at the shape the documents made when you treated them as a single argument rather than 3 separate facts. He could see the whole picture. Every connection, every line. She had not been impulsive. She had been building an exit while living inside a life she had already decided to leave. She had been doing it in the same period when he was working toward the most significant transaction of his career, in rooms he couldn't discuss, on a timeline she couldn't see. They had both been building towards something. They had not been building toward the same thing. He sat back. He looked at the window, at the downtown skyline, small and specific in the distance. "What do you want to do?" Gloria said. He was quiet for a moment. "The house is mine," he said. "That's not a fight." "No," she said. "The account withdrawals," he said. "I want those documented, not for a claim. For the record." "Done," she said. "The franchise announcement," he said. "When is it going public?" Gloria looked at him. This was a different register from the previous 3 points, and they both knew it. "The league office releases the approval Tuesday," she said. "The press conference is Wednesday morning." He nodded. He thought about Vanessa, about a woman who had built an exit while living in a life she had assessed and found insufficient. He thought about the 7 sentences. He thought about she had found what she was looking for. He picked up his pen from the desk where he had set it. He held it. He had signed the franchise documents with this pen yesterday afternoon. He had signed them in a conference room on the 32nd floor with 6 other people in the room, and not a single one of them had spoken for a moment after the last signature landed, because there are moments when the weight of a thing makes speech unnecessary. She had been packing the apartment they shared while he was in that room. He set the pen down. "I need an attorney for the divorce," he said. "Someone who isn't connected to the business side." "I know 3, Gloria said. "I'll send you names by this afternoon." She reached across and refilled his coffee. He picked it up. He looked at the wall. "She's going to find out Wednesday," he said. Gloria said nothing. "That's not why I signed the deal," he said. "I want to be clear about that." "I know," Gloria said. "You signed the deal because it was the right deal at the right time after 5 years of building toward it. The timing is what it is." He nodded. He folded all 3 documents back into the folder. He put the folder in his briefcase. He stood. He buttoned his jacket. He shook Gloria's hand, not as a gesture, as a specific acknowledgement of a specific thing. "Thank you," he said, "for all of it." She held the handshake for a moment. "Go home," she said. "Eat something. You have attorneys to call in the morning." He went home. The house was still empty in the way it had been empty the night before. He ordered food. He ate at the kitchen table. He looked at the bracket on the window shelf where the plants had been. He thought about the plants. He had not watered them. She had. They had lived in his house for 4 years, and he had never once watered them, and now they were gone, and that specific detail, for reasons he could not fully articulate, was the one that sat in his chest with the most weight. He sat with it. He did not try to make it smaller. Then he cleared the table and went to bed. He didn't move fast. That was not his practice, and nothing about the week had changed his practice. The attorney Gloria referred him to was a woman named Constance Beaumont, 61 years old, meticulous and unhurried, who called him at 7:04 on Monday morning and said the 3 things that told him she was the right person: that she had reviewed the property documents Gloria had sent, that the posture was clear, and that he should not contact Vanessa directly under any circumstances until the petition was filed. He had not been planning to contact Vanessa. He had not needed to be told, but he appreciated the clarity. He spent Monday and Tuesday working. He had 3 other active client matters that had not paused for the circumstances of his personal life, and he was not the kind of man who allowed circumstances to alter his professional obligations. He called clients. He returned documents. He reviewed a contract for a client in Dallas whose timeline required a response by end of day Tuesday. He gave accurate timelines and hit them. On Tuesday afternoon, the league office issued the franchise ownership approval. 14 words in a press release that Darius read from his desk, on a screen, alone, in the office where he had spent 21 years building toward this exact sentence. He read it twice. He saved the document. He closed his laptop. He sat in the quiet of his office for about 4 minutes. Then he opened the laptop again and answered an email. The press conference was Wednesday morning. He wore the suit he had worn for the signing. He used the same pen. He sat at the table in front of the cameras and he answered questions in the direct, measured way he answered every question, with the information that was accurate, no more. And when a reporter asked how long the acquisition had been in the works, he said 5 years, and when the reporter asked whether it had required sacrifices, Darius looked at her directly and said, "Every significant thing does." The stories ran that afternoon. His name, the franchise, the transaction structure, the 5 years. He did not hear from Vanessa directly. He had not expected to. He had not checked whether she had seen it. That was not information he needed. He had not signed the deal to be seen. He had signed it because it was the culmination of 21 years of work, and the signing had happened when it happened, and the house had been empty when it was empty. And those two facts occupied the same day, for reasons that had nothing to do with each other and everything to do with who he was and who she had decided she could not wait for. Constance filed the divorce petition on Thursday. It did not happen all at once. The divorce was settled in 6 months. Constance was precise and patient and cost Darius nothing he had not anticipated. The house remained his. The documentation of the account withdrawals was presented. Vanessa's attorney did not contest the figure, and it was factored into the final settlement with the quiet efficiency of a number that was too well documented to argue with. Vanessa received what she was entitled to under the law, honestly calculated. Not more, not less. Darius had told Constance from the beginning what he considered fair. Constance had made her professional face, the face of a woman who respected generosity while reserving judgment on its strategic wisdom, and had proceeded accordingly. He had heard, through Gloria, that Vanessa had moved in with Raymond. He had heard, 4 months after the divorce was final, that the arrangement had not lasted. He had received this information, processed it, and moved on from it in the space of about 90 seconds. It was not relevant to anything he was building. He had 8 clients now. A 9th was joining in the spring, an ownership group in a city he had wanted to work in for years, whose lead attorney had called him the week after the press conference and said, simply, that they had been watching his work and they wanted to talk. He answered every call the same day. He had kept the franchise pen. It was in the same place on his desk where it had always been, in a plain black pen case that had been a gift from his father the year he passed the bar. He used it for what it had always been used for. Signatures that mattered. He had bought 4 small plants for the shelf by the back window. Not the same kind Vanessa had kept. Different ones he had chosen himself at a nursery in Decatur on a Saturday morning in June. He watered them on Sundays. On a clear evening in late September, Darius was sitting in his study with the window open and the city making its particular evening sounds below. He had finished a call 20 minutes earlier with the ownership group in the new city. A long call, substantive. The kind that moves things forward in specific ways, and he had sat down afterward with nothing in particular to do and had not immediately filled the space. He looked at the pen on his desk. He thought about a Thursday in March, and a suit, and a 32nd floor conference room, and 6 other people, and the specific weight of a room that goes quiet because something real has just occurred. He thought about driving home afterward, about the bracket on the window shelf, about a note with 7 sentences and the last one saying she had found what she was looking for. He thought about the plants he had not watered for 4 years because he had assumed someone else was taking care of them. He understood that about himself now in a way he had not before. He had been so focused on the building, the long, invisible, years accruing building, that he had let the immediate things exist in other people's hands and called it trust. That was not entirely wrong, but it was not entirely right either. Some things needed his specific attention. He had learned, at 44, to give it. The city outside was doing what cities do in September, cooling finally, the evening air carrying something that was almost a smell of change, the light going amber, and then bronze, and then slow. He picked up the pen. He uncapped it. He pulled the legal pad on his desk toward him and wrote 3 things he needed to remember tomorrow. He capped the pen. He put it back. He got up and watered the plants. He turned out the light. He went to bed. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.